Hello, my name's Ruby and I hope to be a writer someday. I recently travelled to Massachusetts by myself, and the main reason I did this was to visit the Emily Dickinson homestead.
Genuinely, this has been a point of pilgrimage for me,
since she's my favourite poet, and this is where I was actually working for a week. On one of the days, I was given the incredible experience of spending an hour writing in Emily's bedroom, and I wanted to share that with you today. Honestly, I could tangibly feel this presence when I first went in. This is how it would have looked if when she lived here. So I'd been told beforehand that often people come to the museum, they step in Emily's bedroom and they're overcome with emotion, like some people start crying. And so I thought, or maybe I'll have something of a reaction, but I really didn't think it would be that strong or intense. I suppose part of it is this awareness of what happened in that room, kind of how she created this incredible poetry, sat at this tiny desk in that bedroom. Going into the space, I really wanted to do the kinds of writing that Emily Dickinson was most partial to, which is of course poetry and letters. And so I started off by writing some poetry, and I was actually really surprised by what I wrote. It ended up being very much in the Dickinson style. So in a similar way to Dickinson, I used dashes and fragments and half rhymes, and I also found myself slipping into a kind of semi-hymnic rhythm, which is what she tended to use. And I think most likely this is because I kept on thinking of specific lines for poetry and reciting those to myself. It's probably not that surprising, and I thought I would share with you something that I wrote, even though obviously it is not very good. So I ended up writing like 3 pages of poems, and they were kind of fragments. They weren't all necessarily separate poems, they kind of blended into each other. How much, I wonder, of a moment is created, crafted from grafts and impressions, sunlit provisions. The schoolyard belle sat down with pencil bouquets and yellow wallpaper, told to write, to craft and create a moment from figments and filament burnt black as Titania's hair, told to create a moment, to capture it firmly, turn us from dust into air, to breathe life into graphite and back again. The other form that I tried experimenting with was letter writing. You might know that I write letters very regularly. It's one of my favourite kinds of writing. I'm actually reading this book at the moment, Open Me Carefully, which are Emily's letters to Sue. Now, Emily Dickinson did not follow traditional letter writing etiquette when she was writing letters. Letter writing etiquette was very strict in the 19th century, and there were many unsaid rules which surrounded it, many etiquette guides which were published. This is something I'm very interested in. One of the letters in this that I read yesterday, there's an ink blot over the word heartbeat. She writes, Susie, under that black spot, technically termed a blot, the word beat may be found. My pen fell from the handle, occasionally the same, but life is too short to transcribe or apologise. I should say, and I meant to say, that etiquette guides are very clear that if you make a mistake, you should go back and rewrite the whole thing. But of course, Emily Dickinson does not do that and just continues. So she doesn't worry about her letters being perfect, looking perfect, following correct etiquette, and the words are the thing that prevail. Dickinson also often wrote on scraps, backs of envelopes, chocolate wrappers. And so when I wrote this letter, I actually tore off part of a piece of paper and I wrote a very short fragment of letter on that. And it was actually a strangely freeing process because it eliminates perfectionism. There's not the same pressure for it to be perfect and to get it right, and so this allows you to be more creative, and that's definitely a key takeaway that I'm going to walk away from this experience with. I also did just spend some time walking around the room, looking around and just soaking in that atmosphere of what the space was like for her to write in. So for example, there are 2 portraits of Barrett Browning and George Eliot above her desk. When she's writing, she's kind of got the watchful gaze of these great writers that she loves looking down on her. She could also see the steeple of her local church from her window. Her window faces where the sun sets. Looking out from her window, she can see the evergreens, which is where Sue and Austen lived, and this is really interesting when we think about how she wrote so many letters to Sue and so many poems to Sue. Hi, I'm so sorry. I completely lost track of time.
Oh gosh, no, it's okay. It's okay. How was your session?
I can't really put words to it. I'm not over exaggerating when I say that today, like, that was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had. After the studio session, I went home, well, back to my B&B, and I wrote for a bit in the evening. I also read some more of her poetry, and I was just feeling very inspired, and I found myself being hyper attentive and hyper aware of the things around me. It's like when you see everything afresh. Often I get that when I have a cold shower. It was like that. It was like my senses were in overdrive, and yeah, it was really cool. That it will never come again is what makes life so sweet. Believing what we don't believe does not exhilarate. That if it be at best an ablative estate, this instigates an appetite precisely opposite. So just to finish this video, I wanted to give some takeaways of almost things that I learned or things that I want to try implementing, having written in Emily Dickinson's space, and I guess what I learned about her writing process. And I'm not claiming to be an expert or anything here, this is just my personal experience with it, and things that I want to take away, things that I was struck by. Number 1, to set aside undistracted time for writing. And when I say undistracted, I mean in silence.
Emily Dickinson mostly wrote in the early hours of the morning or late at night, where she could avoid distraction and no one would walk in on her. I wrote in the middle of the day today, but it was a slot of 1 hour where I knew everything would be silent and I wouldn't be distracted. Doing this, I can see why she wrote at these times of day.
Number 2, try working at a small workspace where all you've got is your paper and your pen. Her desk is very small, like much smaller than I thought it would be. It's tiny, it's like this big. You can just about fit a notebook on there. And she'd have a lamp on there too, so she did not have very much space at all. And so you can't clutter it up, you can't have lots of different papers on, you can't be consulting books and notebooks. And that means it's literally just you and the paper.
And I really like this because it meant again that I could just focus on the writing and not get distracted.
Number 3, writing where you can see the natural world, where you can look out over greenery.
This one isn't really something I learnt because I try to do this at home anyway, but it's still something I thought I'd transmit back in this video.
Number 4, hanging up pictures of your favourite authors or things that inspire you in order to prompt your creativity. And number 5, and my favourite one, write on scraps of paper and almost deface the paper before you write on it to avoid perfectionism and allow yourself to be more creative with whatever it is you're writing.
Kind of similar to something I've seen on social media, which says you should scribble over the first page in a new notebook so that you don't get perfectionistic about the things that you write in it.
Yes, so thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for literally joining me on the coolest thing I've ever done. I will be sharing some clips from my time in Amherst. I spent a week there and I did vlog it, so that video will be coming soon, sometime this week. So I hope you enjoy watching that, and thank you for watching today's video, and I hope that you have a productive week.